Hey guys, what's going on? JDOmnislash here. I thought I'd try something a little different. Instead of doing the usual write-up a long blog that most people don't really read, I thought I'd get my thoughts out from a video perspective instead here and see how that goes. So just a quick bit of background. I'm speaking as someone who, of course, played the original Secret of Mana game for the Super Nintendo multiple times, actually. I was always really blown away by the soundtrack and some of the really cool gameplay ideas that I saw from it at the time. I thought it had done a lot of really creative things that I hadn't seen in other games at the time. Of course, this is going back to 1993. Good times, good times. So, obviously, some people are a little divided on this remake. I don't blame them for being that way. I came out of this a little mixed myself. First thing I'm going to say is to determine if you're even going to really like this new version of the game or not, it's very important to understand what this actually is beforehand. What this is not is a what I'll call a full-fledged remake with big changes to the gameplay, revamping everything like what we're going to see with, you know, the Final Fantasy VII remake down the line. What this is more closer to a remaster in a lot of ways, because the gameplay is almost unchanged from the original, while the game is given more of a new coat of paint to go with, so to speak. That said, even with, you know, rose-tinted glasses on your face here, it's gonna be hard not to notice that some of the elements of the original really don't hold up as well today. If this game were to be released today as is, without the original having ever existed, then I could see this being a major turnoff for a lot of new players. They would say, oh, well, why was that done? Or this weird, baffling decision. Even though back during, you know, the early 90s, it wasn't too big of a deal. There was just, you know, hardware limitations at the time, and it was understandable stuff, and it was stuff that we could forgive. A little harder to do now, but again, being someone who played the original, it didn't really faze me much, but just, again, a bit of warning. So the next really obvious thing here to talk about is going to be the game's new art style and its new look. First, we'll get the good out of the way, or something I found good, that I actually really liked the look of the new areas and the maps for them. This is going to be mixed opinions here, but I like the environments themselves. I feel like they took the exact style of the original and kind of turned it into more of a pop-up book. And, you know, everything's still really nice looking. The colors are really vibrant. I actually didn't hate that part as much as I thought I was going to. So that was the good. The questionable stuff obviously comes from the look of the new character designs. They've got this new cutesy, chibi look to them, which not everybody's too happy about. I admit that kind of turned me off a little bit originally too. I've always really been a fan of the original sprites because it was more of a stylistic thing. Here, some could argue that they feel like they're taking some of the life out of it, and although I don't know if I'd go that far, I can see why people would say that. They make some weird, glaring decisions, like the fact that even when the characters are talking, which now has voice acting going on with it, their mouths don't move while they talk, and it's really off-putting and odd. Just little touches like that make you say, well, how hard did they really work on all of this? It's kind of strange. Now, I will say I was already used to this style, this look already, because if you've ever played the remake of what we called Final Fantasy Adventure over here, the first Seiken Densetsu Adventure of Mana was a remake of it, which came out for mobile and then for PS Vita. I played the Vita version. I think I got it on sale for about $5, and the art style was pretty much the same. In fact, it makes me wonder if we are going to get a remake of the third one at some point in this style as well. It'll be interesting to see if there's enough demand for it. After this, it's tough to say. I'm not sure how well it did sales-wise from people who were just either trying to relive their childhood or hope that they were going to get something more polished than this. But again, because of that, I wasn't as fazed by the look of things because I was already used to it, so it didn't totally draw me away or anything like that. I do think that they could have gone with a hand-drawn animation style instead. If anyone ever played the remake of Lunar Silver Star Story on the PSP, it was called Lunar Silver Star Harmony. I think they did a much better job with that style, and I think that would be the way to go for a product like this as well, but it didn't really happen. And it's, you know, it's what it is. I'm past it now. Other people, maybe not so much. Again, I understand your pain. Ooh, my voice cracked. Yes, I do understand your pain. The voice acting in the game is obviously very questionable. It's not like Dynasty Warriors 9 bad, but it's still pretty... you feel more like they took on an accent, each character, and they just read off a sheet of paper and tried to give emotion to it, but they only got like 1 or 2 takes, and that was it for each one. Gameplay-wise, obviously, you're, if you can, go for multiplayer. Just like in the original, I always recommend going for the multiplayer. It's still the most fun way to play the game. Even if you just can only get a second player and not 3, that's much more worth it. And I say that because the AI is pretty much unchanged from how it was. The AI commands changed a little bit. They're a little more simplistic, which some may find better or worse. But the same bugs that plagued the original, they're still all there. And again, that goes back to the fact that the gameplay is still more or less exactly the same. Just small little tweaks here and there. Speaking of the tweaking, it's strange. I felt like they changed things that didn't need to be changed. You know, they fixed things that weren't broken to begin with, but then didn't fix other things that we probably would have loved to see them fix over the years. For example, the ring menu system that you go through for each character, that's been changed now. The ring doesn't form around each specific character anymore, so it's a little hard to tell who's who, especially if you're playing multiplayer with 3 people. I could imagine people getting into fights over that, and that's not good. You don't want to do that. But it's much harder to tell now, and that's actually something I thought was a little worse than could have been. Some things they fixed, though, that they actually made better. They increased the item limit so that you no longer have this outrageously small, almost Resident Evil-style limitation of items you can carry. You don't have to change it, but the option's there. I think it's a welcome one. It's one of those things that shouldn't have had to be that limited in the first place, but they probably had no choice back then. But again, other things that could have been fixed. I would have loved to see actual item descriptions when you're at the item shops buying things, or a description after you receive an item, or even when it's in your inventory. It never describes what these items do. You have to either look up what they do somewhere else online if you don't know, or you just have to experiment with them. And when you're paying, like, 900, dollars for a barrel and you have no idea what the barrel does, you're not gonna try and waste it, obviously. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, it's just to say really strange choices that make this come off like it was made with some amount of care, but maybe not as much as fans, including myself, would have liked. With that said, I don't hate the experience. With all of those little complaints, I still, at the end of the day, this game is still Secret of Mana. It is still the game that we know and love, hidden under that new coat of paint. And I say, if you were looking to revisit the original, maybe in a new way, then you could still find it worth going back to. I personally don't feel my time has been wasted with it yet. Talking about the gameplay choices again, there's obviously a couple of routes that Square Enix could have gone with the remake here. They could have... They were probably asking people, I'm guessing, what they should do, if they should keep gameplay the same or not. And I'm guessing, if that's true, they were probably told, oh no, don't change anything, we all love the original, and half the people who said it probably don't even remember how flawed that the gameplay is, or how it doesn't hold up as well anymore. And then, so that's what they obviously went with. And, you know, and this is, again, going to, like, the reverse of what happened with Final Fantasy VII. All over the internet, you see people complaining, saying, oh, they're changing everything. It's not going to feel like the same game anymore. Well, obviously, they tried to keep everything the same here, and they're getting even more complaints for that. So it seems like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. Personally, I would have been thrilled if they kept the gameplay the same, but worked more to make things less frustrating. Like, the fact that your AI characters still have a hard time following you after all this time, that seems almost inexcusable at this point. I let it go because I'm used to it, because I remember being used to it before, so it didn't kill me, but again, this is getting to be some unforgivable stuff thrown in there in little bits. Personally, I would have really loved to see the Switch collection of all 3 of the Mana games, or the Seiken Densetsu trilogy in the States, and I still have some little eensy bit of hope that that'll happen someday. One of the reasons I got the physical copy of this game for PS4 from GameStop, because it was an exclusive with them, was in the hopes that we'd get that trilogy if Square got the message that people wanted this stuff enough, but who knows if it's really going to happen. Personally, I just really want to finally see an English release for Seiken Densetsu 3. I mean, it's just, we never got it in the States after all this time. You'd think that we would have gotten some kind of port of it. Anything, but no. No, still not here. I don't know why. Again, though, I'll say, at the end of the day, this is still Secret of Mana. It is still the game that we know and love, hidden under those new layers, and I do think it's still worth the time if you're willing to accept it for, again, more what it is than what it isn't. I do think the price tag's a little high on it, though. I got the physical copy because I knew it was going to sell out, the PS4 version, and I was right about that. It actually did sell out everywhere. But it's still priced too high. $40 for something like this is just, it's not right. If they had went with $30, I would have still been on the fence. I do think maybe around the $20 mark, that's probably fair. That's for what you get here. That's more the sweet spot. If they had tweaked the gameplay a little better, I would have probably found the price more justifiable. But as it is, it's just a little much. So I'm gonna say, if you are a longtime fan who wants to go back into it, knowing full well that they didn't really fix a lot of things, but added, extra in conversations and stuff that you may be curious about, because they're not bad. They help with character development a little bit. I would give it in the 7 to 7.5 range for those kind of fans. If you're someone new going into it, I'm going to say probably lower that score by a point and make it more like a 6 or a 6.5. You are probably overall better with just trying the original version. There's a bunch of ways to play it now. If you have I think a Wii U, they have the Virtual Console version there. If you got a Super Nintendo or SNES Classic, it's also included as one of the games on there. I think those are the better ways to do it. I don't recommend this being the first version of it that you play, because the flaws in it are just too apparent and unforgivable for the time frame that it's come out in at this point. And I think that's really gonna sum it up there. So despite the complaints, it's still Secret of Mana. I still love it, but I'm not gonna forgive the flaws that it's got too. But the love is still absolutely there. I still can't stop playing it. It's passionate complaints that I'm giving it, because it's still good. I can't argue with the fact that it's still good, and its strengths really play to the fact that a lot of things about this game still have held up well. I just wish there could have been more work done so that the whole thing held up well. But time well spent. So I think that's going to sum it up for me. Let me know your thoughts as well in the comments if you're there. Feel free to like and subscribe this video. I'll be trying to put out more content, either new to funnies, new playthrough videos, new discussions on games like this, and see if we could get more fun discussions going from there. So thank you all for watching again, and I'll talk to you all later.